Welcome to the 1111 podcast. Let us all join together by taking a deep breath in and a deep breath out. Catching the wave of the Mayflowers. Catching the wave of the good ass prana and the good ass energy flowing towards us all. And, I recently found this other podcast, what is it called? The spiritual psychiatrist or something. Anyway, it's by Samuel B. Lee. And he also is breathing in that good ass prana. And I thought that would be a dope matchup to see him and Ralph Smart and whoever else, Teal Swans, all of them just talking together. But it seems like anyone that's on this path, all the energies are flowing together, the creative energy, right? Because we're all drinking the same source, it seems. Because he was talking about stuff I've been feeling or thinking. Then I found another creative that's talking about stuff as well. So if you would like to be talking about some of these topics or suggesting some of these topics, please let me know what topics you have, what conversations you'd like to hear. And if you would like to be a part of this conversation, either yourself or nominate someone to talk or collaborate, let me know how we can collaborate together, whether through exchanging conversation, music, or otherwise. Let me know. As well as signing up for the donation-based counseling therapies. I do provide donation-based counseling as a counselor. That is a service that you can find in the description below. But for particularly starting in the month of June, during that beautiful Selah, I will be doing a 6-month intensive healing for those who are ready. So there is a sign-up sheet if you would like to be a part of that. You just click on that, fill that out, and then you'll get a message from me for the next steps. And it's a 6-month training basically from June to November. Meeting weekly for intensive healing, spiritual training, spiritual warfare, learning, grounding, healing ancient ancestral wounds, inner child healing, basically everything. It's a very holistic approach, so we cover, the sky's the limit of what you want to cover. And for those who've never done counseling before, I know it can be a little nerve-wracking, and there's a lot of stereotypes and slogans about people who go to counseling. All of us are deeply traumatized. All of us need help. We are not an island to ourselves. We need each other. And this is a safe place to open up, to express, and to know that your desire is important. Your truths are important. So if that sounds like something that you've been wanting, looking for, look no further. That is available. Now, in the last recording, I was really hearing that song, That's Life. It's a Frank Sinatra song. That's life. And, we are taught these slogans and these programs since we are young. It is what it is. Life isn't fair. That's life. That's just how it goes. Good things don't happen for us. Or any of these limiting beliefs that have been repeated through eons and centuries and generations. Because words are powerful. And so understand that we have the power to change our life by the thoughts we think, by the words we say. So is that really life, or is that the way life has been up until this point? This might have been the way life has gone for a certain time, but I think it's time for a new way. So that's life. It can be a very limiting perspective. What does that mean? What are we getting at when we say that's just life, or that's life? I've recently been diving into some Greek mythology. And there's been a lot of planetary movement, especially with the sign, or the planet Mars. And Mars controls, or is the ruler of Scorpio as well as Aries. It's traditionally known as the sign of Aries. It's ruled by Mars. I've also seen that is also connected to Scorpio as well. But knowing that it's so connected to Aries, and Aries has been having a lot of different placement and a lot of different movement. Now, just ironically, my Mars is in Aries, and Aries is ruled by Mars. And so I've been really tapping into the sign, the Greek mythology of Aries. And ironically, as it all coincides, one of my readers just so happened to be doing a story, a reading, a telling of one of the cards that showed up was Aries, or was Mars. And that led us to the conversation of Aries. And as I'm listening to this reading, she starts to discuss that Aries, I didn't know this, Aries is the parent, has two children, two sons, by the name of Panic and Pain. Now, for those who have seen the animated Disney film Hercules, that's immediately where my mind went. It went right to those two characters of Pain and Panic. I had no clue that they were, the children of Ares, the god Ares from Greek mythology. No clue. So I'm like, wow, that's very unique, right? That's very unique. And as I start to dive into these energies, they start to show up, they start to manifest, they start to play out. So I'm uncovering more understanding of Greek mythology and understanding all these different things. And later on that evening, or that same week that I'm uncovering all of this, I'm making my masterpiece of a vegan meal. And it has literally never happened from the time I've been in the kitchen. It's never happened, but I cut my finger. And it's still kind of bruised right now, but this was, a little while ago. But I cut my finger, and it would not stop bleeding. And I was just like, what is happening? And I'm, feeling this pain. Dang. And so I'm feeling this pain of hurting my finger right now, and I'm like, ow, and I'm like, I can't even focus. I'm like trying to not pass out and trying to find the first aid and everything else, and I'm like, yo, what? It literally has never happened. And I'm like, this is like one of the dullest knives. Why? How? What? I'm just like, how did I just cut myself here? And so I felt that pain of, hurting myself in this instance. And I'm sure I have cut myself, right? I'm being very exaggerating, but it's not often that I do that. So, so I'm just like, okay, I finally find the first aid. I'm all good now. And ironically, as I'm diving, like I said, into these energies, they start to really show up. And so later on that same evening, I'm, getting ready to rest and call it a day. And next thing you know, I just hear pow, 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 pow. I just hear gunshots. And I'm just like, whoa. And it was super close. And I'm just like completely in a traumatic state. And I tend to lean more into the freeze when I'm in trauma. So I'm just like, I feel my whole body icing up. And I'm just like, what the hell? And, services were called, and they were like, we're on our way. We already know. Yeah, we're on it. And I just thought to myself, compassion is definitely the way forward, because there are people right now living in all parts of the world who are experiencing that as their reality every day. There are bombs, there are gunshots, all the people in Gaza, all the people in other places of the world. I mean, hell, people just living in the hood. They have to hear railroad tracks and gunshots and yelling and violence and all of this. And how immune we are to that. We're immune to the suffering of others, and how it becomes normalized. And for them, they think that's life. They think that that's living with that trauma. You know, when I am out and I see people with their head on the swivel, as soon as they hear arguments or they hear sirens going off, people are so programmed to be so reactionary. And in order to stop that correspondence to the trauma that we are expected to do, I can always tell when I'm out in public and people start amping it up, like they're just itching to get someone else's energy, so they start talking really loud, or they start doing all these things for attention. And you can tell they're just desperately wanting someone to see them. Now, it's important that we do feel seen. It's important that you have community that does do that. What's harmful is when you have to try to siphon other people's energy and try to be so self-indulgent that you take from other people. And so whenever I'm out or whatever, it's so important to just breathe. Bring it back to the breath. When you feel yourself about to react, whether it's reacting in anger, reacting in road rage, or just reacting out of the quickness of the immediacy of everything wanting your attention. Your attention is so important, because what you focus on is what's going to start attracting itself to you. So I had to just really pause for a moment and just say, for many people, many marginalized people, many underprivileged people, this is life. There is a war on so many different groups. I mentioned many times there's a war on the feminine consciousness, but there's also a war on the darker complexions, because we can hold a lot of light. We can be the light keepers, and there can be a lot of envy for those who have stripped away their identity, or who have moved so far from the equator that they've lost their resonance, they've lost their pigmentation. And so what we are living in right now, this post-pandemic, this post-COVID, post-2020, is such divisiveness. People are so engulfed in their own bubble, and people are so numb. And I feel like people from, I guess, my generation and beyond, the generation that grew up that has an understanding of what it was like before technology took over, or is trying to take over. It never really can. But before it became so intrinsic a part of our lives, there was more interpersonal skills, there was more community. We actually helped each other out a little bit more. And, you know, ironically, I recently have started binging on the show. I had been looking for it for years. The show Charmed. The OG original Charmed. The Life of Witches. And I finally found it. But in the midst of looking for the original, I found the new, renovated, updated version of it. And I just decided to start watching that as well. And I also found the original. And so I've been kind of flip-flopping between the two. And there's such a different energy. Like the newer one on Netflix that came out in 2018. It's more understanding where we're trying to move to, of equality and liberation and care, you know, and just like sensitivity being appreciated, things of that nature. And there's also more diversity, you know, in the characters. There's more diversity, there's more nuance to them. And I also really appreciate the focus of sisterhood. There's a real bond of sisterhood on there. And I really appreciate that. Because that's really what we need, is the feminine to heal itself, that it doesn't see the other feminine energies as competitors and doesn't need the validation of the masculine energy or anything of the sort. So I really, really appreciate the way that they really display, in my opinion, what family means. And so I go back to the one from the 90s, the one that I used to watch, and I'm like, well, I wasn't really allowed to watch it, quote unquote, but the one that I resonated with and was really attracted to. A lot of shows from that time are just like really revealing how it's always been right here. Everything we know to be true. And so watching the one from the 90s is a different nervous system we had then. A very different understanding. And I can see how we got to where we are now based on watching the previous nostalgic ones, right? And one thing I notice about the one from the 90s is comparing it to the newer one, the newer Charmed show. The new version of Charmed really needs to keep you hooked. They keep your nervous system really hijacked because every ending is like so intense to keep you hooked, to keep you coming back. It's an addiction. Back in the 90s, they didn't need to do that. Every episode ends peacefully, simply, calm, really nice. And you go back out of choice, not out of fear, not out of sitting at the edge of your chair wondering what's going to happen next. But you go back because you just love it, because you just enjoy it, because you feel a resonance. And yeah, they don't need that same kind of hook back in the day. They didn't need that same kind of hook. But our nervous system has changed and devolved so much that we need that constant stimulation where we are currently in human society. And another thing that is a subtle energy in the New Age episodes, there is a subtle energy that makes me almost feel a little nauseous because it's actually tapping into real magic, I think. The one from the 90s had an understanding of it and was tapping into it to a certain extent, but it relied more on the physical. So a lot of the quote-unquote villains or bad guys, they operate with a lot of more physical power, like violence and torture and things like that. The new one, not so much, but you can feel there is a different type of energy to it as well. Hard to put into words. But we are living in this post-traumatic era where we have rulers, leaders, if you want to call them that want us to wake up in fear. That will literally say that. Literally, the owner of Amazon can say, I want my employees to be in fear. And then people will continue to work for them. So it gives the subconscious message that I can say and do whatever I want, and you will still be here because you need me. You need the resources, you need the money, you need the whatever, you need the false sense of protection, you know. And so that has been life. This has been life as the way we've known it. And I think it's time that we start to paint a new world. I think it's time that we start to create new stories. We've been living so much out of fear. When you wake up and you grab your phone and all you see is fear. When you wake up and you turn on the TV and all you hear is fear. You put on the radio and all you hear is low frequencies. There are two timelines splitting. One that's going to lead us to community and peace and harmony, and another that's going to lead us to the devolving of our emotions, because we're going to prioritize logic and AI and things like that over the human heart. You need both. But for so long, because of the fear of the feminine consciousness, we fear going into the mystery. We fear going into the unknown because it's uncontrollable and we have no reference point for it. I find beauty in it. Most people can feel uneasy by it, and I understand that. And that's not to say that I'm somehow more better or worse or anything of that nature. It's just to understand what resonates with us. I'm sure there are many people who resonate with going into the unknown. I wasn't always as comfortable. I've had to learn to be comfortable because things have not been as I might imagine them to be. And for a long time I felt like I was going by this script. I was going by this leading, and then went off script and everything changed. And it's like, well, guess we gotta throw that out and come up with a new rule book. So the way our mind is really can affect how we get through these challenges. It can help build our resilience or not. So we can either go into the unknown and be scared and terrified and think of all the what ifs, or we can go into the unknown and think of all the possibilities, all the beauty that could be, that we can paint a new world. And it takes practice. Everything takes practice. One way to get to this new world is by going within. Starting to heal yourself, being aware of yourself, starting to observe your triggers, your responses, what you're attracted to, what you enjoy, what you desire, without judging it, without shaming it, without trying to put it into some kind of category, but to just really live your truth, whatever that means. And also to live in a service to others. How can you give? They say give and it will be given back to you. So giving is part of what we're here for, I think. Giving is what we're here for. Giving love, giving time, giving service, giving wisdom, giving energy, giving resources, whatever it might be. You know, donating, all of the above. But to really understand how traumatized we are as a society, one thing I have noticed, you know, as an observer, one thing I've noticed is a lot of humans are not ready for peace. They're not ready for harmony. They haven't been since the ancient times when my ascended master walked this earth, and they're still not ready now. And it requires being comfortable with things that might make you uncomfortable, like the unknown. Doesn't mean it's scary. It just means that we have these receptors and programs that we have to evaluate and see if they're helping or hurting us. Are they beneficial, or are they just getting in the way? And so one thing I've noticed is people enjoy the panic. And I've noticed this too about people who are really bored. Like back in 2020, people were so bored, they need to go out on these adventures, these made-up adventures. And that really shows me anyone who's doing the work understands you don't have to go looking for danger. I mean, again, I think about little Simba. You don't have to go into the elephant graveyard. That elephant graveyard will come to you. You don't have to go anywhere. You don't have to find a way to make danger happen or to try to make your life more exciting. Because when you're on this healing spiritual journey, some of the things I've experienced would make your head spin, and would also make you not believe half the things that I've witnessed or experienced, or some of the real threats that the spirit realm has going on. You don't need to go and be a hero or a villain for that matter. You don't need to go out looking for danger or looking for something to make you feel alive or excited. Because the more healing you do, oh yeah, the more you're going to feel everything. And that means you won't even need to create these endorphins and these highs and lows to try to make yourself feel special, because you already know that you are. You already know that you are, because the journey you're walking on will tell you every step of the way how special and important you are. And so what I've noticed is people who are bored tend to make a lot of chaos. Whether it's someone who's in a leadership role or someone who's just causing a muck at your job, they just are bored with their own lives. So one way to cure that boredom is to start healing. But a lot of people don't want that either. A lot of people don't want that. And so what I've noticed, this is just a pattern recognition I've recognized. The gas prices are in flux because of current situations going on. And when the gas prices are extremely high, if you pay attention, that's when the places are flooded the most. Whenever there's, for example, a storm, a hurricane, or some kind of natural disaster, that's when the grocery stores are packed. The grocery stores are empty even. Like the shelves are empty because so many people are in scarcity mode. On a regular Tuesday, they're fine. There's no need to empty the shelves. And you might say, well, duh, you don't need it then, so of course not. But I would just say, why is it that only when we're in a frenzy do we start to think about, oh, we could lose this? Why is it then that we only appreciate things after the fact? And then you have other people who, are doomsday preppers who are ready. They're like, look, I've had this for months. I'm not even worried. And we'll laugh at those people. But their nervous system is probably a lot more regulated than the people who at the very last minute decide to go out and go shopping the day before. And I'm not saying that to judge or shame anyone, trust me, I do that myself sometimes. But my point is, it's sometimes it just happens that way, right? But it's also a condition of our nervous system, of our mindset, where we are as a human species. And so I noticed the same thing when the gas prices spiking and intervene. They are in influx right now. When the prices are super high, that's when the gas pumps are full. So what does that tell the powers that be? Oh, let's keep the gas prices high so that way people can keep going. They're actually not rebelling against this. They're actually all for it. So let's keep going here. Because everything is information and everything is sending out a message, a ripple effect. So if you keep going towards these negative energies and agreeing with them on a subconscious or conscious level, they will continue to manifest and show up, and they think that that's what you want. So as a human species, we continue to see this degrading of ourself and our esteem wherever it may be, because the majority will continue to put people in places of power that are corrupt. The majority will continue to feed into a system that tells you we don't give a shit about you. The majority of people will continue to harm themselves and each other by the way they talk and treat one another, by continually wanting us to be in a state of trauma. How can you look at another person and want to strip them of their own humanity? Do you think that people are here on this earth to please you? Do you think people are here on this earth to be controlled by these forces? I think not. I think not. And to the contrary, when the gas prices go back low, people get so stingy. I see it all the time. Every time the gas prices are low, people have this warped mindset where I'll go right to the gas station and I'll usually fill up my tank when the gas prices are low. But I'll see the person before me only put in $5. Only put in $10 because the gas prices are lower. So you think, well, I don't need to put in that much to get, more gas. But I think a little bit differently. I think if the gas prices are high, I'm only going to put in a little bit. Even though it's only going to give me a little bit of gas, it's still my rebellion to saying, I'm not paying your over ridiculous prices for something that should be equal and stable. These things shouldn't even be in flux. Rent shouldn't be in flux. Gas prices shouldn't be in flux. We shouldn't even have to pay to live here. This is our home. Planet Earth is our home. So why do we have to pay to live? Doesn't make sense. So I do believe that there is a new world coming. There is a new world that wants to arrive. And I ask you, what world do you want to be a part of? There's no right or wrong here. It's just, what world do you want? What do you want the world to look like in the next couple of years? What do you want the world to look like in the next couple of days? Time is irrelevant. Everything happens at once. So what do you want, and how can we start making that happen? So I thank you for liking this video, sharing it, subscribing to the YouTube channel. Go ahead and send those topics in. If you have any requests, I'm all ears. I'm looking forward to just seeing what we can create in this new generation, being the new breed, the new seeds that say that was life, but this is life. This is living now. So be well. Take care. Until next time.